America's symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, you couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer and Vice President of I don't know what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, what the heck, dude? What's going on? How are you?
Conrad Thompson. Here we are. Memorial Day weekend, heading into the summer. I guess this holiday is probably the very best out of holidays. It's fitting. It's really fitting. Memorial Days, when you look back, and for me and you today, we can look back over the last 12 months, 13 months.
Yeah.
Had a lot of highs, had a few lows in there. You got me crying, and
oh gosh, listen to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, I have thoroughly enjoyed this last year. Like, it's indescribable. It really is.
It was a lot of fun, and we can't thank you guys enough for joining us on this journey. I don't think a lot of people, I had so many people come out of the woodwork and say, I never thought I'd ever listen to a Jeff Jarrett podcast. And then they loved it. And then, you know, we all see the news last week. It broke towards the end of the week last week that you're moving on, pal. Good for you, dude. Congratulations. Back in the saddle. You know, I've said the joke here on the show a lot that if cats have 9 lives, Jarretts have 10, and you apparently found another one. You're back with WWE. What can you tell us about your new role and what you'll be doing there? And
you know, as you know me, Conrad, I'm a personal guy, and I'll leave. I'll leave it personal for that matter. It's, you know, and kind of what's been stated out there, SVP live events, you know, as well as anybody, my passion is in live events, but I'll just kind of leave that right there. It's going to be a journey that I'm excited about, but you know, as it all comes together, you know what this means, don't you?
Well,
I am so ready for year 2. Let's rock, Conrad.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, we knew we were going to get the question. What does this mean for the podcast? It means nothing. Business as usual every single Tuesday. It might mean that Jeff and I have to record on a different schedule, but you're still going to get My World every single Tuesday. We've still got a lot of time left on our Westwood One deal, and we're going to be bringing you podcasts for a long time. And I know there's been a lot of debate about, you know, who can do what within WWE, but I don't think we're trading any trade secrets here, or sharing any trade secrets here, but you have a carve out, I believe is the phrase, to where you can still continue to do the podcast, and it's just business as usual here for My World, right?
Turn right, pal. And I hope we keep the same schedule. I like it timely. I like to get into it. I like to come off the weekend, do my research or read my research and dive into it. You know, last night, Karen, when I came down the steps, Conrad, she goes, wow, what's the topic tomorrow? You were up there a while. I had fun looking back over these notes. Man, what a different, we'll get into it, but you know, family health situations and just all the craziness that went around it, and Ron Killings, and it just, Conrad, it was hats off to research guys. Hats off, Derek. You did a hell of a job on this one. We dove in, a couple of comments from the chairman himself in there that we're going to get to. So looking forward to this. But before we dive into that, fellow promoter, if you will.
Listen to you.
Come on now. Don't start. No. Let me drive this ship for a minute. Congratulations, my friend. In under 24 hours, your very first, now you've done 4 Starcast.
Yep.
Lots of stage shows.
Yep.
So lots of mortgages. You've done a lot in your career, but collected a few belts, did some horse trading over some belts, all this. But to my knowledge, you've never been a promoter of a wrestling show, and you came out of the gate. Ric Flair's lastmatch.com, Pally, in under 24 hours.
Well, who's keeping score? But all the tickets, all the seats were sold in 3 hours and 32 minutes. We had some standing room. We had some standing room only options, and I said, guys, I think they normally release that after the fact, but the brain trust decided, let's just throw them up, and and inside of 24 hours, even the standing room only tickets were sold, which kind of shocked me, if I'm honest with you, because it's like we're telling you up front, you can watch, but you can't sit down. We don't have any chairs. And folks still did it. So yeah, it's totally sold out. RicFlairsLastMatch.com, but don't worry, you can still enjoy it. I can't believe this is real on pay-per-view, both traditional pay-per-view and fight. We want you to pre-order with fight. Go to RicFlairsLastMatch.com and you can do that. We have an option for you to get just the roast of Ric Flair, another option for you to get the roast and all the panels at Starcast like you normally would. The roast is included in the Starcast bundle. But then there is like a much bigger bundle where you get Ric Flair's last match, the roast, and all of the panels. And there's even a special opportunity on there. We can't do this for all of them, but there's a canvas. You'll actually have a piece of the canvas from Ric Flair's last match with a picture of him in his retirement robe. It's a really cool opportunity. It's RicFlairsLastMatch.com. I think folks are going to dig this, man. And I know that you've been helping me as I said, hey man, what about this match? And what about that match? And you've been my, my mentor in all of this. And I think the undercard that we haven't announced at all, because, this thing sold out with us just saying Ric Flair's last match. We didn't say an opponent. We just said, hey, here's the date, here's the time, here's the place, and it's Ric Flair's last match, and it sold out. But the undercard, this is going to be pretty special. Wouldn't you agree?
Conrad, you know how hyped I am. And for an old vet like me to just kind of like, oh, wow, that came through, Conrad. How'd that call go? Yep, we're confirmed. That one word, confirmed, is a mighty enjoyable text to get from you these days. But I'm excited, man. It is, I really think, and I've said this here on my world, a really, really good card there is a little something for everybody.
Yes.
And different slants and just, check these boxes, however you want to sort of cachet it. I am fired up. The roast, what a buzz in this town. I did local radio here on 104.5 The Zone Friday morning. And me and the producer and a couple other guys, and I got some phone calls or texts afterwards. Politically, I'll just say that diplomatically right now in Nashville, there is an incredible buzz for Starcast because we have, for listeners out there all over the globe, shout out to my Australian friends down there, loyal supporters in the UK. So I'm not sure if we can make it over, but so I don't want to get too localized here, but Nashville has never had, and look, the Jarretts have promoted in this town or been a part of the promotion since 1946. But to my knowledge, I certainly hadn't been a part of a convention. Over 100 wrestlers are going to be here. And I just don't think that can be, don't think it can be overstated enough, Conrad. The stage shows are great. And yes, all the multiple podcasts, but the one-of-a-kind situations you put together, Nashville has never seen anything quite like the weekend. Of course, SummerSlam's coming to town and the stadium show, but less than 3 miles away, Conrad, the stuff you have lined up, the Friday night, this all day Saturday, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and then JCP at 6:05. Nashville's never had anything like this.
It's going to be exciting. We hope you guys are checking out what we're doing. Follow us on social at Starcast Events. If you missed last week, you missed a lot. We announced that we've got Brian Danielson for the first time ever at Starcast. He will be on stage. He will be doing meet and greets. You need to make plans to join us. We're still not done. We've got plenty more big announcements coming, but we've also announced that right there at the fairgrounds, you've got Black Label Pro Wrestling getting us kicked off Friday afternoon. And I've gotten a peek at some of the talent that's confirmed for that. That's going to be a pretty special independent wrestling show. And then the leader in the space when it comes to independent wrestling, Game Changer Wrestling, they're going to be running a late night show on Friday night right after the roast. They've got John Moxley confirmed. They've got Bandito confirmed, and the hits just keep on coming. Psycho Clown, just a who's who of professional wrestling will be there doing meet and greets, doing matches, doing panel discussions, and really special opportunities. Like we're recreating the 605 set that we all grew up on. Tony Schiavone and David Crockett are going to do commentary on that Jim Crockett show, Ric Flair's last match. But also too, you can get your picture made in front of that set with the Horsemen. And I don't think they've all been on stage like this ever before. And realistically, this is probably the last time. What a special opportunity. Go check it out. Starcast.com. That's STARRCAST.com. But boy, we've done so much shilling. I guess we should remind everybody we're here to talk about wrestling from way back when.
But hold on. You know how we do at the top of the show. Connie, as our pal JR would say, opening day, Robert Stadium, Springfield, Illinois. You know, we've chatted about this sometimes against your will. Started way back November, December, but opening day is this Saturday. And man, what an exciting week we have here. So just want to give Lucky Horseshoes are on the field, and it's exciting time, pal. Very exciting town. So, all right, that's the baseball conversation, Conrad. We can move on now.
Hey, before we do, I want to remind everybody we've still got our figures out. If you haven't already, go check it out. We're going to have links in the description, and of course, we're going to be tweeting about it all the time. But I'm getting people posting pictures of their Conrad and Jeff action figures, and it's a little weird, dude. I can't believe this is it. It's majorpodmerch.com. But this Friday, for the first time ever, partnering with our friends, Mr. I almost said Zach Ryder, Matt Cardona, and Kurt Hawkins, or as we like to call him, Brian Myers.
Yep.
They've partnered with us to create the first ever Jim Crockett Promotions wrestling figure. Wow. Ric Flair in his retirement robe goes on sale this Friday at noon. There's only going to be 750 of these that are autographed. There'll be 250 that aren't autographed that will be released at a later date, but a total of 1,000, and only 750 will be autographed. So if you're a big Ric Flair fan, a big figure collector fan, a big Jim Crockett Promotions fan, this is one you don't want to miss. It goes on sale this Friday at RicFlairsLastMatch.com. And maybe if you're in the mood for some old JCP merch, man, we got more than you can shake a stick at over at StarcastMerch.com. That is going to be pretty cool, man, because there haven't been people sporting Jim Crockett Promotions stuff in public in like 30 years, and now it's going to happen.
Speaking of merch, Conrad, you see this shirt I have on right now? Do you know it's the #1 seller? I thought I'd let you know that, folks, that are listening on audio. I am wearing my Los Cuatro Caballeros. So put that in your Smythe and poke it, pal.
I like it. Hey, by the way, don't forget, we'll move on, but adfreecares.com is where you can pick that shirt up. It's the most affordable shirt you'll find at Pro Wrestling Tees. All of our shirts are, and we keep zero of the money. I mean it. 100% of the proceeds goes directly to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. We never even see it. We just have Pro Wrestling Tees cut the check directly to them every single month. So it's the best way to support the podcast and let the fans or let other wrestling fans know that, hey, I like this show and I like St. Jude's. You can help somebody do something nice and represent maybe a podcast you enjoy. It's a cool thing for us, a cool thing for you, and a great thing for those families. So check it out, adfreecares.com. But now let's jump into it, man. We're going to the fairgrounds in Nashville, not the new one, the old one that we used to call lovingly the Asylum. We're talking about a match that happened on June 2nd, 2004. Just to give you guys a heads up, this is right before the debut on Fox Sports Net. And how we get to this particular show and the match we're talking about today, the very first ever King of the Mountain match, is a pretty interesting story. A lot to unpack here, as I like to say. Let's jump into it. Here's a quote directly from the Observer. Jerry Jarrett underwent a 4.5-hour quadruple heart bypass surgery on May 21st after a heart attack scare 2 days earlier while planning the weekly TNA pay-per-view. Jarrett, in his early 60s, was found to have major blockage in one artery, significant blockage in another, and some in two others. The scare took place at the Nashville Fairgrounds at about 3 p.m. Jarrett was feeling lightheaded and fell back into a chair, complaining that he felt his heart racing. He was rushed to the hospital by Jimmy Hart and Burt Prentice, where they found a greatly accelerated heart rate. His heart rate was immediately put under control through medication. Jarrett, who had joked in an interview just a few weeks ago about his lifestyle not being the healthiest for a man of his age, came out of the surgery well, but was told he was going to have to take it easy for a few months. Jarrett noted that he wakes up running and doesn't stop, and often only eats one meal per day and not until 6 p.m. Besides being involved in TNA, Jarrett also runs a successful construction company. The pay-per-view that night was built around Jeff Jarrett interfering, hitting AJ Styles with a guitar shot that led to Styles being pinned by Ron Killings in a four-way that also involved Raven and Chris Harris, and Killings got the NWA title. A backup plan was put into effect in case Jeff Jarrett wasn't going to be able to return to the building. but Jarrett did come back for the main event finish. What a story. I don't think you've ever talked about this. So from your perspective, what do you remember about that day when, man, all of a sudden Dad's in a bad spot?
What a unique time. Like I said, when I came down the steps last night, Karen's like, wow, you've been up there a while reading the research. I was literally trying to jog my brain on the timeline because these were the very last shows as far as the Wednesday night pay-per-views that we had. Because like you said, we were going into transition. We were taking our, Fox Sports show. So we were going to go down there. But man, we were on our, last, I don't know, 10, 12, whatever, but we were coming to a close, all these. So those days, from the beginning, when we moved to the asylum, just a real skeleton crew, if you will, limited budget, everything that we've covered on the pod. But I just remember being, you'd have to kind of know, structurally or geographically, but I was back in where we had our production office, and they walked in the door and said, "Hey man, your dad is not doing well. Come here." And I'm just like, I could just tell by the look on the face. I've forgotten actually who the first person was, but back in those days, Tony Falk ran Go Position. Obviously, referees, Burke Prentice actually had the contract to the building, but I couldn't jog my brain out. But I just remember the look of panic and kind of sense like, get over here. Jimmy Hart was on this particular Wednesday night. He was there. And by the time I got, what is it, 300 feet over there across the building and back around to Go Position, he was sitting in his chair, didn't look good. And next thing I know, let's go. And so I had my personal keys in my pocket. They had already pulled up his car, and I believe Jimmy Hart was driving that. And anyway, it just kind of a mad whirlwind, Conrad. We headed and just St. Thomas Hospital in Nashville. Again, I tried to we went to St. Thomas, which was a little bit out of the way, but that's the best heart hospital in Nashville. So I should have called my dad to ask that. But anyway, we got over there and I beat them over there by like 30 seconds. I mean, they pulled in almost right behind me, but they pulled, I went into parking, and they went up to the emergency. And as I'm running up the hill, they're taking him in, and then they take him in and hook up everything. And I remember they didn't let us in the room, but I overheard like his heart rate was like 180.
Oh, wow.
It was like, there's a word for it, but it, not spasm, but something along those lines. And man, they started giving him that medicine, and immediately, which is still, when you see that medicine act that fast, he could almost start exhaling and feeling a little bit better and a little bit better. And so when everybody was around him, and not when I say medically, and they felt like they were getting their head around everything. I guess I stayed there 2 hours, and I'm kind of rolling through this, but Jimmy and Bert, and I called Deborah, my stepmother, and however it was all like, okay, if he hadn't had a heart attack, he's about to, but he's at the very best place, but he's definitely stabilized. And the doctors, and then, Jimmy Hart's like, do you want me to go back to the building? And Bert was like, you and Jimmy go, I'll stay here. It was one of those kind of juggling acts. And then I go in and talk to my dad just for a minute, and he's like, you need to get on back over to the building. And I'm thinking to myself, it was one of those things. I'm like, okay, if I stay, I'm damn sure going to stress him out, because he's going to know neither one of us are over there. And it's just kind of a catch-22. But anyhow, I do remember getting home late this night, and obviously we stayed in contact through the day, and people kept me posted. But I'm almost thinking to myself, we just did a 2-hour show. What happened today? My dad had a major heart episode, and that felt like a year ago, but it was only a couple of hours. But the doctors obviously sort of got their game plan and knew the testing with the blockage and major blockage in one and couple of blockages in others, but Conrad, it's one of those days that everything kind of just runs together. And oh yeah, by the way, there's a 2-hour pay-per-view, and here's but you know, as fate would have it, I wasn't scheduled to wrestle. I was doing the run in, and I just remember when I got back to the building, there was plan B and plan C sort of already put in place.
Who would have been helping make that plan B and plan C and all that?
Russo. I'm trying to think. But Russo, because Dutch was back in Puerto Rico to my best of recollection. And Scott D'Amore was helping out, but I would guess that Russo, Jeremy Borash, Scott D'Amore, probably some talent got together, Killings, Road Dogg and Conan, whoever collectively, some senior veterans, so to speak. But Russo was running point, would be my best recollection. Again, man, a lot of this runs together because of my father's health situation on this episode.
Talk to me a little bit about what the relationship dynamic is like. Are you and your dad, you know, pretty tight here, or things starting to get a little rocky? Just personally, where are you guys?
Incredibly stressed in, like, we see each other on Wednesdays and we kind of talk, you know, throughout the week, but it's just through the roof stress. I just saw something on Instagram earlier today about how our mind can cause physiological effects and everything that went with it. So high stress, you know, to kind of put a little timeline on this from an outgoing deal, is that we had brought a potential new investor to the table. The Carters didn't want anything to do with that gentleman. And so, okay, we're going to move forward. The Fox Sports deal, as we've covered here, go back in the archives, you know, it was it was a paid situation. So our expenses, I say all this to say, me and my father knew better than anybody. Our expenses are about to go up quite a bit because not only are we paying to be on TV, but we're doing another production. So we were doing 2 a week, plus travel, plus being paid. So the stress of our financial partners making it even a more investment weighed on both of us. And then, of course, family situation on all sides. So, you know, we had a relationship. It wasn't like it got where we completely disconnected from each other, but it was very, very stressful, Conrad.
I'm just wondering, you know, it's moments like that. And you had obviously been dealing with some stuff with your wife sort of off and on for a bit. She's still with us here in this era, but you know, at this point, you know, how stressed and tough things have to be with this new business. But at the same time, your dad having this health event like this really brings clarity to what's important. And the idea that you're there and he's still saying, oh, you got to go back to the show. Yeah. You're in a tough spot where it's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Right.
Yeah. And that's fellow promoter now. No, you're not going to experience the craziness, but yeah, that was, you know, the emotion, the nonverbal communication. I've got a great book I'm reading, Conrad, I'll share offline, but anyway, the nonverbal communication that went on with everybody from the time that I was told in the production room, hey, your dad's not doing good. It's a different tone. It's not like he's had a bad fish sandwich or something like that. Like, he's not doing good. And that whole tone, and then walking across the asylum in the arena to go to him, and he's sitting there and they're already pulling the car up and we don't have time to waste. And what's really going on? And Dad already thought through, ambulance ain't going to get here quick enough. Let's go. His car's right there. All those little things, it just kind of puts so many things in perspective, like just boom, there it is. And you know, you don't even think about, man, we won't, that's probably what you're thinking. But you know, when you really cut away all the BS and clutter of life, you know, you don't want to regret, but you live and learn. But you just think, man, what's really important here?
Yeah.
Is it who wins and loses tonight, or the flow show, the show of the flow, or whatever else trivial BS that we would argue about, who's getting this win or who's getting this loss or who's getting pushed or not. These kind of moments certainly clarify everything.
Well, and it was in the Observer, it was reported that your dad admitted he didn't have the healthiest lifestyle. And maybe that's an important first step for a lot of us. And that's why I know Jeff and I started taking AG1 from Athletic Greens. This has been a game changer for us. Jeff, I know you've tried a bunch of different supplements over the years, but it's hard to find the stuff that works, that actually tastes good. Like some of that stuff, woo, just foul. But man, I've been using AG1 for a while now. My wife and I got to tell you, I'm feeling better than ever. And what I know that I like about this is it's just one scoop of AG1, and then you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. You got a special blend of ingredients here to support gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your focus, your aging, your recovery, all the things. I like it because unlike some of the other stuff Megan's had me try, hey man, this stuff don't taste half bad. And it's really easy. We're talking one scoop in a glass of water and you're good to go. This is a perfect way to start your day. And it's lifestyle friendly, man. Whether you're trying to eat keto or paleo or vegan or dairy free or gluten free, they work with AG1. Check this out. You've got less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything. And it still tastes good. It's also going to support better sleep quality and recovery. It's going to support mental clarity and alertness. And it's the one thing with the best things. We're talking Athletic Greens using the best of the best products based on the latest science. They're constantly doing different product iterations and testing with third parties. And it's also very affordable. I should mention it costs you less than $3 a day and you're investing in your health. That's cheaper than your old cold brew habit. It's cheaper than all the other different supplements you've been trying. And you're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance here. But don't take our word for it. Check it out. They've got over 7,000 5-star reviews at Athletic Greens. And that's why we recommend you check it out, man. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health. Arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/myworld. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/myworld to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And boy, that's half the battle right there. Is it not, Jeff?
Conrad, here's what I say to any folks out there that just kind of want to go, Jeff and Conrad, they're getting paid for this somehow, some way. It's an advertisement. Here's what I challenge you to do, because I did this to my family. Go read the data on who formulated all this. And then you make just do that. And if you don't like it, but I'm telling you, when you kind of look at, nothing solves a problem like someone who has experienced good health or whatever. I'm telling you, it's the real deal. It is the real deal. Speak very highly of it.
We can't recommend it enough. Go check it out right now. Just take a look. As our old pal Jim Ross says, it costs nothing to look. We want you to look right now. athleticgreens.com/myworld. So let's talk about this same show. It's almost like a cursed show here. Sanjay Dutt gets into a car accident on the way to the airport. And then during the main event of the show, where AJ Styles is defending his NWA title in a 4-way, you come out with a guitar and smash AJ, bust him open. I guess, on the one hand, this feels like a pretty crazy day, but on another hand, just another day in the promoter's life, huh?
Well, I don't know about that. Conrad, not to sidebar here. If we really want to dig this up, but do you believe in kind of the full moon effect? Like if there's a full moon, like the emergency rooms are fuller and kind of something's in the air? And
no, I don't, but I know a lot of people who do.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm friends with those people. So I'm not one of them, No.
You don't believe in the gravitational pull of life. That anyhow.
I know some people who are like, boy, my neck hurts. Let me put this magic crystal on it. And so I don't judge that either. It's like,
I'm not going by that, but is data that shows that emergency rooms are busier on nights of full moon when you go out past, when you look at all the data. I'll say all that to say, shout out Derek, when you did the research, my father, AJ Styles, look, all this can happen. Sanjay Dutt had a car wreck at this time. I believe he was finishing up school. It was kind of like a wacky Wednesday, if you will, but we had lots of wacky Wednesdays in this.
Are you saying it was a full moon that day?
I'm saying I'd love to do a little research and find out if May, whatever the dates we are, was that a full moon? Seriously, don't shake your head. God, you're shaking your head.
I love you, Jeff.
Las Cuatro Caballeros.
I just didn't think you were one of those people, but now I know.
Just to do another sidebar, do you think Rick will sign this shirt for me?
No, I'm sure he will. If you got 125, I think that's what autographs cost now. If you got 125, I'll get you to the front of the line with a platinum bracelet. Don't worry. Hey, by the way, Jeff Jarrett's going to be there. We should mention, I know that everybody's wondering, okay, I know we can keep doing the podcast, but well, turns out he had already agreed to be at Starcast. So come see Jeff while you still can. Starcast.
Oh, I can't wait, pal. I can't wait.
So here's an interesting gimmick. Here we go. The new thing is apparently to come up with new stipulation matches every week. The problem is if you come up with a new one every other month, it can mean something. But when you do it weekly, it almost guarantees nobody will care about any of them. This week was Killing's title win, which wasn't a regular 4-way. It was a deal where Styles started against Harris for 5 minutes, and then Raven joined him at that point. And at the 10-minute mark, Killings joined him. The nature of the match kind of guaranteed that there couldn't be a finish for 10 minutes. The match was missing something in that there were spectacular moves, but it didn't hold together all that well. It had the ref being out of the spot for when Jeff interfered and hit AJ with a guitar shot. Raven DDT Styles, but then Harris makes the save. Harris drops the elbow off the top onto Styles, but Killings pulls the referee Rudy Charles out of the ring, so he couldn't count. And then Killings uses an axe kick off the top rope and pins Styles in 1912. Vince Russo came out to tease overruling the decision while referee Andrew Thomas was pointing to the broken guitar pieces all over the ring, which I guess would count as some sort of evidence. And Russo then decreed he was upholding the Killings win. So a different gimmick every week. And I know a lot of people hear that and think, oh, this is that Russo stuff. But in fairness, a different gimmick every week is pretty Memphis, because once upon a time you had the exact same fans coming back every single week. And how many times can we see Mr. Dundee versus Mr. Lawler? Well, about 52 times a year, just with different stipulations every time. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, every week. I think that's doing a little fiction writing there. But, at this stage of the game, or really even at the beginning stage of the game, Wednesday night pay-per-view, get creative. It's not like we can bring in an endless supply of known talent that's going to move the needle. Or for that matter, would you even want to do that? So, yes, what we tried to do is, and when you kind of look at the of the asylums, saw Jim Duggan, Kurt Hennig, Road Warrior. I mean, just week after week after week after week, we tried to have surprises with established stars, maybe do a 2-week or a 3-week or a 4-week. We're going to get into a Dusty Rhodes conversation here in a little while that was much more of a mainstay. But we wanted to let people tune in and see stars that they had known. But as far as the nuts and bolts of the matches, yes, we had our tags and 6-mans and, whatever it may be, something on the pole or somebody in the corner. But I always try to challenge myself first and others. What can we do that is not too far out of bounds and too crazy, but how can we be innovative? I think at TNA that was one of my constant things, guys. We've got to do something different. We got to do something new. And of course, you don't always bat 1,000 when you're trying this, but we did try to be innovative. And that's really the thing that led to, as we're going to get to here in a little while, the King of the Mountain concept.
So let's talk about this Styles cut here. It's in the torch here that AJ's pretty pissed off. Quote, AJ Styles was upset with Jeff Jarrett because of the cut he received from Jarrett's guitar shot. Although Styles quickly calmed down, wrestlers point out that Jarrett has a history of being reckless with guitar and chair shots. One incident that wrestlers recalled was when Jarrett split open D'Lo Brown's head on a TNA pay-per-view. So I have to admit, I've heard you called everything but your name, but I've never heard anyone say that you were reckless and that you were dangerous. In fact, I've heard other famous bald wrestlers with goatees say that you were so soft that you could run the ropes and not even break an egg. So this to me is like, wait a minute, what? Do you remember AJ in particular being upset that you cut him open here?
Look, kudos to whoever wrote that as far as selling newsletters. It makes for a better read. But I've been accused, like you said, of a lot of things. But careless is not one of them.
I've never heard that ever.
Maybe the appearance of reckless, and I did that by design, like this guy's kind of lost it or gone crazy. But I'll say this about AJ. As a very young man, he always had it together. He's not even a young 20-something-year-old. He's not a hothead. Would you see him from time to time? Yep, he'll get really upset and angry. Never cuss word, but all that. So I'm sure AJ, having to get back in his car and drive back to Atlanta, didn't exactly care for a busted open head, but he had all the right in the world to get a little aggravated, a little angry, or a lot angry. But it was never one of those things that he came through the curtain looking for a fight. So I don't recall. I'm sure he was upset though.
By the way, that bald-headed wrestler with a goatee, who maybe people remember a couple of stories we've told here, has gone on to do just fine. Now, as a matter of fact, he has a television show called The Broken Skull Sessions. And as luck would have it, this Friday, you're going to be on that program. So if you've got the WWE Network or you got Peacock or what have you, we want you to go out of your way to check out Jeff and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yes, in 2022, having a conversation. And that ought to be kind of fun, man, this Friday, huh?
Conrad, have you seen the 2 Instagram posts that I put up? He's flipping me a bird and I'm flipping him. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes.
Lots of likes on that. We had a lot of fun. I'll just say that kind of, and I got more coming this week, but that kind of summed up. It was, man, when you got, especially the way Steve and, he has his notes there. I mean, he literally went from day one when we met, late 80s in Texas. So when you talk about all the water under the bridge, it was a blast. A lot of fun, beautiful place he has out west. So flying out to the Broken Skull session set was really cool. This Friday, it drops. #1 show outside of their premium stuff, but he has a highly rated show.
Chat me up. I'm just trying to piece this together here. Who has better research? Our team or Stone Cold Steve Austin personally for his show?
Conrad, see how you are.
We're just asking questions.
No, and I didn't actually get to put my hands on
his research.
So that's I'm shooting blind here. The one thing is Steve covered 30 years. So a lot of top line. We collaborated on a couple of things. It's going to be interesting if it makes the cut. But that we were talking about guitar shots, and I said they had mentioned a few, and I said, "Oh man, Beetlejuice and Gary Coleman. Those are for some entertaining." So they may or may not make it. But I'll just say this very candidly, Conrad, the team you have put together, research, social media, ad sales, they're second to none. But Derek does an incredibly thorough job. And I get comments when I do the autograph signings like, "Hey man, how the hell does Conrad know?" And I go, "Now wait a minute." He's got a researcher too. No, it's Derek and the team do a very, very good job. So our team has better research. It's so in depth. It really, really is. Yeah. Well, no disrespect to the Broken Skull team, but our team has the best research.
I appreciate that. Hey, so chat me up about Ron Killings here. Wade would write, the decision to give the belt to Ron Killings was puzzling to a number of people. TNA gave him an early run with the belt. He quickly lost steam after he won the belt, and he has only recently regained the popularity he achieved prior to winning the title. It turns out Vince Russo and Scott D'Amore made a strong and successful push to convince Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantell to give Ron Killings the NWA title win on Wednesday night. Ron didn't find out until the day of the show he was winning the title. He was said to be frustrated when wrestlers warned him that his title reign would likely be a short one, since everyone expects Jeff Jarrett to win the title either before the show debuts on FS or shortly thereafter. So, a lot to unpack here, as I like to say.
Boy, is there.
When I first saw Ron Killings at the TNA show, the debut show, which, believe it or not, is 20 years ago this month here in June. It was right down the hill from me. You've been to my house. We have to pass the arena to get here. And I got to just putt down the road and go see TNA and thought, man, this is going to be special. We broke it down in our archives. Go watch that first episode and relive that. But my takeaway that night was one of them, hey, man, Ron Killings is going to be a big star. And I felt solid in that he was going to be one of the pillars of your promotion and a tippy top guy. And all these years later, he's still wrestling and making a great living and entertaining and putting smiles on faces. But it didn't happen exactly as I would have maybe imagined it might in June of 2002. Here we are a couple years later, though, and we're putting the belt back on him. And those negative Nancy's who say, oh, well, Jeff's going to do this or Jeff's going to do that. I don't know, man. It's pretty cool to have an NWA heavyweight championship run, even if it is short-lived. I don't think Tommy Rich or Kerry Von Erich would disagree with that either.
And this was his second go run.
Yes.
And I cannot jar my head for the life of me that knowing that we were coming on Fox Sports, and I know my philosophy and mentality that it's literally like you're starting a book, starting a movie. And I believe in establishing storylines. It's much easier and more productive and more lucrative to start with a heel champion. And then you immediately identify the folks that are going to chase it and kind of listen to the crowd and kind of look at things as they go. And one of them's going to pop out of the break, but go with that heel. You can establish a heel quicker. You can establish his, character traits and everything that go with it. But why we went from AJ to Ron, and what the decision was made, me, my father, everybody internally we love Ron. And his athleticism, I think people, you look at him today and he still moves just like he did 20 years ago, which is kind of amazing to me, but he does. But his charisma, and at this point, Conan and BG were the Three Live Crew. They were working with him. So I wish I could really recall. Maybe we can do an ad-free special and bring somebody back that can help us sort of navigate these waters. But Ron Killings you could always put the belt on him, and he elevated things. His charisma, he could talk, he could rap, he could work though.
A really special talent. Do you remember Russo and Scott trying to convince you and Dutch that this was the right call, or were you just not sold on Ron before? Or
well, the thing is, reading it back with no real. There's sometimes when I read the research that I'm absolutely positive that this is why this happened. This is why this happened. I don't know if maybe AJ couldn't be there the following week. He was going on vacation. I don't know why we wanted to transition it. And again, maybe the sheet writers that they got a little bit of information and said, hey, we had to do a hard sell on Dutch and Jeff. I just don't recall why we made that move. I don't recall them hard selling. Here's what kind of, if anything, if you just take a step back and look, the hard selling would be me and Dutch hard selling Vince on Ron Killings. And I don't say that out of disrespect at all. And maybe it's not even a hard sell to Vince, but I just don't recall that at all.
It's just fun to go back and think about how these things got booked.
Yeah.
Considering all this, it's also interesting as the Torch has this to say. Vince Russo issued a statement on the internet to announce that he's going to ministry school in Colorado. He was telling friends backstage that he plans to continue working for TNA, although no one seems sure whether his school schedule will force him to give up his current on-air role. Did Russo tell you about this plan? Does this hit you out of left field? Talk me through this.
You know, when he first came to work for us, he was living in Atlanta. And then I could remember him telling me, I'm moving to Colorado, bro. And I said, you're doing what? I mean, that's out west, pal. I just love the mountains. And he's still there. So hats off to Vinny Roo for picking up his bag, and the brash New Yorker moves from New York to Atlanta, and then, you know, often Dixie, and at times early, I'd just say, move to Nashville. What's tying you? Well, his kids, you know, were in high school and I got all that, but then all of a sudden he's going to move from Atlanta, not to Nashville, but to Colorado. So now you're going to be flying in from out there. But the seminary, you know, I didn't pry into that, dig into that, but I do recall that was the announcement. And at the time, was kind of his mindset.
It's a really cool thing to read about and see, you know, that somebody's I don't know, trying something new. And I dig that. Before we talk about the King of the Mountain concept, because that's really what we're here for, I want to remind everybody that we're actually friends with Mr. Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis has a side gig, if you will. I'm talking about LegacySups.com. Check this out. Guys, we have a problem. Recent studies have shown that testosterone levels are falling in American men. Low T is linked to depression, low sex drive, weight gain, so it's important to stay on top of it. You could go to a TRT clinic, but it's expensive, awkward, and in most cases, not necessary. You just need to stimulate your body's own natural testosterone production, and that's why we recommend you check out the Ultimate Test Stack at LegacySups.com. The majority of testosterone release occurs while you sleep, which is why the Ultimate Test Stack is the best natural test boost system available today. Test X9 stimulates testosterone, T-Assist controls estrogen, and Recovery PM gives you the best night's sleep you've ever had. You're going to feel like a new man after trying the Ultimate Test Stack for 30 days. If you don't believe me, check out all the verified 5-star reviews from satisfied users just like yourself. And because Legacies are friends of the show here, you can save 10% off your entire order at LegacySups.com with the promo code MyWorld. That's LEGACYSUPPS.com. It's time to level up with Legacy. That's LegacySups.com to get 10% off your entire order when you use the promo code MyWorld. But Jeff, let's jump into the whole King of the Mountain concept. Like, in case you're not familiar with this concept, can you explain to someone who is listening to this podcast but did not watch, how would you break down and describe the King of the Mountain match?
Man, Conrad, if I could tell you the amount of times in 2011, 12, and 13, we're talking 2004 right now. Yeah. 4, yeah. Well, we in 405, 04.
We're in 04.
Yeah. So 7 years later, I'll call it during the Hogan era, because at that point, I mean, it's almost like something that they kind of latched on to. Oh, these gimmick matches I don't even know the rules to this. And I can hear Russo, bro, I've been doing it for years and I still don't understand. Kind of silliness. It's a reverse ladder match. And with that being said, you take the belt and you hang it. You got to climb a ladder and you got to hang it on the rung, the same type rung that traditional ladder matches are used. And a lot of people say, now, why did you come up with that? Why did you think through all that? And I said, it's kind of simple. I always thought, and this may be overthinking, maybe some of my OCD, Conrad, but as a champion going into a traditional ladder match, it's like the champion has to relinquish the belt and we're going to go hang it. It's kind of like maybe the belt could be held up. So hold the belt up. It's one of those situations, but a traditional ladder match. And I thought to myself, okay, how can we kind of do something innovative People love ladder matches. People, all the stunts and falls and everything that's been covered on all your podcasts. And there's some fantastic ladder matches. You know, my favorite one, or still up there at the very top, is Shawn Razor at WrestleMania 10. But that being said, a reverse ladder match and with multiple people in it. So as we sort of drilled it down, I said, okay, I don't want to do an elimination, but what can we do to basically kind of take it another step? And so to get qualified to hang the belt, you got to get a pinfall. If you get a pinfall, all right, what are we going to do with that guy that got pinned? He can't jump up and go steal the belt and run right to the top if he got the belt. So we have a small penalty box at ringside. And so if you get pinned, the guy who gets the pin is qualified to hang the belt. And the guy who got pinned does 2 minutes in the penalty box. And that's it.
Okay. So there you go. How do you remember this coming to be? I mean, this feels old school Memphis, but I know a lot of our listeners assume, oh, this is Russo's idea. Set the record straight. To the best of your recollection, whose idea was this? Okay.
My idea. You know, the King of the Mountain that we kind of worked into with episodically in the asylum, and there for a while I was wearing a tuxedo and just kind of went down that, not the traditional like Jerry the King Lawler, King Carl Fergie, King Harley Race, King Haku. I mean, you know, all the different kings through the years, just a kind of a little different slant. And we went with King of the Mountain. And so I don't know who said something in creative, but hey, what about a King of the Mountain match? And I just remember hearing that and I go, I've always wanted to do, or somehow, some way figure out a reverse ladder match. The fact that you climb to the ladder and bring the belt down, and as I already mentioned, that it kind of feels, rightly or wrongly, that okay, the champion has to relinquish his title, and he's okay, it's hung up on a gimmick. But so I wanted to do the reverse ladder match concept, and then we layered in, okay, if you're going to have 2 or 3 people in it, how does the belt, you know, who determines who can take that belt and win? And once the belt comes into play is after a win, after a pinfall, excuse me. So it's me, Conrad.
I'm glad to know that we can point the finger at you.
Yes.
We're also talking, we mentioned too, we're going to start the new era of TNA, the debut on Fox Sports Net. We recently talked about this in the archives, but boy, there's a whole lot going on here. I mean, let's just recap briefly. We're creating the King of the Mountain match. We're flirting with some new potential investors. We're going to be doubling up our taping schedule. We're going to continue, at least for now, the Wednesday night pay-per-view, but now we're starting on TV. And oh, by the way, Dad just had a heart attack. So a lot going on here. There's also something it mentioned in the Observer that the plan was to make sure you were going to be the first champion when the FSN show debuts. And that's why the title went from AJ to Ron to you. The idea being maybe you didn't want to cut AJ's momentum off at the knees. So Ron is going to be a stopgap, a transitional champion, if you will. And then you get the belt. Is the thinking being you had been on mainstream television and they were familiar with you? Is it the old Vern Gagne, Larry Zbyszko? Well, I ain't leaving, so that's safe for me to be the guy holding the belt. Why was it important, do you think, for the promotion that you were the champ when the show started?
Established heel, and right at the top of the deal. Again, still at this point, because we hadn't started FSN, we were 1 day a week for guys. Yeah. There's no way anybody would sign exclusivity. Why would they?
Yeah.
At the very top of the reason, it was because I knew that I was heavily invested and I was coming back. Just that simple.
So from there, let's talk about something else that happens. Vince McMahon does an interview in Toronto for the Score TV network. And when he was asked about TNA, he shunned him off, saying, they're wrestling, we're entertainment. And there were people internally who actually wanted to use that as a marketing slogan within the TNA organization, quoting Vince McMahon. I love that. What did you think of that idea?
We used it internally to the in-demands of the world, to marketing folks. We used it a lot. I loved it. It's like, guys, lean into that, embrace that. He literally just told the world, the greatest promoter in the history, to me, of all forms of entertainment. We're talking about promoter.
Yeah.
He just identified the differences and embrace it, run with it.
There's not a promoter that's close, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, don't get me wrong. Dana White has, oh, fuck off.
Yeah,
Dana,
come on.
Dana White has done a tremendous job, but just the legacy of WrestleMania forward, I don't think it's debatable that he's the greatest promoter. But when he comes out and says they're wrestling, we're entertainment, I'm like, me just knowing you now, not knowing you back then, but knowing you now, I bet your arm here stood up and you're like, well, that's it. Thanks for
Guys,
yeah.
Get the t-shirt, get the branding, get the marketing decks. Because again, and look, it's obviously evolved over the years, but in a lot of ways it was the big guys. I don't want to say heavyweights, but basically the big guys and all the rest. At this time in, the WWE, there were divas. But, again, we're 04, 05. The Eddie Guerrero and that cycle hadn't really, I think we're getting going there. But, I mean, you can see we were the four distinct, our knockouts there weren't there yet. But, look, I embraced the X Division. I wanted those guys to literally be positioned as equals as heavyweights and tags. So yeah, lean all the way into what the chairman said in so many ways, internationally, all of that. We leaned into that. So what does that actually mean? Okay, let us show you. And we would have our clip reel of high flying stuff and mat stuff and lucha libre, but we leaned into it with sizzle reels. So
here's another report from the Torch that I know we're going to have a little fun with. Jimmy Hart was backstage at the May 19th pay-per-view. He sat on a meeting as part of TNA management with Bob Ryder and Tim Welch. Timeout. Who is Tim Welch?
Timbo Slice. Tim Welch is a weekly listener, but no. To go back in time, Tim is now a vice president in banking in Springfield, Illinois. So I know I'm jumping ahead, but he'll be out at opening day. So I work with Tim often now. But back in those days, he came down and started as an intern and worked his way up. Worked his way. I mean, he was my right-hand man. He assisted Bob Ryder. He assisted Jeremy Borash. He was kind of a point guy that he was everyone's assistant and did it very, very well. He was, he wasn't per se a wrestling guy, didn't want to put on boots and tights. He'd had no desire to be in production or in ring. He wanted to learn the office work of wrestling from day one. So you can see where his career took him into banking. Smart man. But no, Tim was assistant to all in our lean and mean days.
What was Jimmy Hart doing with the company officially?
Nothing officially. Jimmy, goes back. Him and my father had a relationship, late 70s, early 80s. And, the Lawler, Jimmy Hart storyline is probably, I know you can put Bill Dundee in the conversation, but at the end of the day, the most lucrative storyline in Jarrett Enterprises history is Lawler against Hart and his guys. And so that's how far back Jimmy goes with the family. And the XWF didn't take off. And so we couldn't afford Jimmy full time, and Hogan wasn't doing so much with anything with WWE. So we would bring Jimmy in from time to time up on Wednesdays. He was instrumental in the original, probably at this time, Conrad, on this show. Why was he up? Because he was the original conduit to Universal Studios, because he had worked most recently with the team there.
Let's keep the report going here. The meeting was held to formally present the wrestlers with new independent booking contracts that will enable the company to book the wrestlers on indie shows while collecting a 15% booking fee. The reaction to these contracts is mixed, as wrestlers who had steady work on the indie scene are concerned that they will now lose money, while others who couldn't find work are happy they'll conceivably work more often. One concern is that wrestlers who turn down indie bookings arranged by the office will end up with heat with management. There was a case recently where one wrestler turned down a potential booking from the office. The wrestler later told friends that he was unhappy with the payoff he would have received and was not interested in traveling to the site of the indie show. He also said he felt pressured by the office to accept the booking, although he eventually talked his way out of it. So, do you remember there being some backlash or pushback about, hey guys, we're going to help y'all get some extra work, but we're taking a cut?
It was such a difficult, yes, I do remember backlash. And it was like, if we're going to put like man hours toward helping guys get booked, because we were getting calls. Now at this time, again, we'd been on the air a year and a half, 2 years coming up. And so we got a lot of calls. Hey, is AJ Styles or Team Canada, are they available? And so we knew that work was beginning to be cultivated off of the Wednesday night exposure. Not that everybody was watching on Wednesday night, but just the fact that, hey, he's the X Division champion. He's in the X Division or whatever it may be. So it just, we began to get all those calls. And so how do we sort of navigate this? I was obviously saw both sides of that it's just so damn hard that this talent, we're offering them 1 day a week. And now if we get you a booking, we're going to take a little cut of that. It was challenging. Yes, there were blowback, but for the most part, Bob, and look, Jimmy could talk from authority, especially coming from the music business. There's always a booking fee. It's commonplace in music or acting or anything like that. An agent gets a little bit. So we were serving as their booking agent, but kind of a new concept in wrestling in those days.
So here's another report from the Observer. Jarrett has decided against giving Konnan his release, so he's staying. It was said to be kind of embarrassing for him since the week earlier he told everyone he was getting his release and told everyone goodbye. I know you've had some challenging conversations over the years with Konnan. I think a lot of folks have read the reports, but we've never heard about any of this from you. What was the Konnan situation like here in 2004? It sounded like he was looking for a release. You granted it and then changed your mind.
We just as of late been chatting quite a bit. Me and him, we often chuckle about back in the day, our low points, so to speak. But I never remember it getting to this point. But look, Konnan, again, he's a veteran, like a mega star in Mexico, and he'd come off his run with WCW. And look, business was tough. Hate to be repetitive, but 1 day a week doesn't do a lot. I don't ever remember Konnan actually saying, I'm getting my release. Bye, guys. I don't remember that, but I know that there were ups and downs, and he was just warning. I'm doing 1 day a week. I'm flying from California. It is what it is. His hip gave him a lot of trouble, or it began to give him a little trouble during this time. And so the physical toll was on his body. But seeing the research of this, look, it was a challenging time for all, especially veterans during this transition.
It's the winds of change are here. Here's another report from the Observer. Shane Douglas looks to be moving from talent role to working as an agent and doing backstage interviews. Terry Taylor was back, so he's officially been rehired. Jerry Lynn was also hired to be an agent, although he'll continue wrestling. So you got a lot of staff behind the scenes. Are you making those type calls?
Yes. And look, adding to the team, as you can tell, with my father's stress, the Carters, were like, what do we need to grow this? And, it was kind of an overarching thing that, we got to make an investment on exposure and TV. A lot of times it was me and Scott D'Amore that literally, and I would wrestle. I didn't have agents. I didn't have producers, whatever you want to call them. It was me and Scott. And then, Vince came on board, but Vince was a talent as well. And so we're like, we need to kind of broaden our staff. And so Shane, being multi-talented and a veteran and had been around the business, same with Jerry Lynn. Hey guys, we need your help because we need to delegate. I can remember often having those conversations with Dixie. Oh, you just got to delegate. Dixie, who the hell am I going to delegate to? You got to have bodies to delegate to. And then we went through all that.
So let's talk about the breakdown of the pay-per-view here. This is the TNA pay-per-view number 97. Just to remind everybody, we're still doing weekly Wednesday night shows. This is the 97th one. It went down on June 2nd, 2004. And they would have some clips air from the previous shows to get us started. And then they introduced Mike Tenay and Don West. And they throw to Scott D'Amore cheerleading his team Canada. Of course, Scott did a fantastic job there. We know these days he's still running the show for Impact. But since we mentioned him, I feel like now's as good a time as any for us to send a little love to Mr. Don West, who recently had some not so great news. And there's a whole new round of support for his GoFundMe. We would love for you to at least throw that in your Google machine, Don West GoFundMe. And you'll see that the original $40,000 goal has been exceeded. We're at 43,000 and change, but boy, he's doubling down on his fight, and a little more would not be the worst thing. So check it out. Don West GoFundMe. What a great guy. It feels a little weird to me. I mean, I know you worked with him forever and ever, amen, but it's a little weird for me that he's not going to be at Starcast. He's been at all four, running our merch stand. Couldn't imagine doing it without him. But man, he's having a match of another type right now, and we sure are pulling for him.
Conrad, I talked to him Sunday in a tough conversation. I'll just say that. But he referenced Starcast, and I got a giggle out of him, and he got a giggle out of me. And again, a tough conversation. But we talked, and I said, look, me and Conrad will discuss this on air. We will. Man, it's just life is tough, but he is a tough son of a gun. Like you said, he didn't get the best of news, but folks, if you, and I'm a huge believer in the power of prayer, send a prayer up for D-Dub. He is going through a challenging time. And that first time in Chicago at that Starcast, I remember your team kind of like Don used to do, their jaws dropped a little bit, didn't they, Conrad? Like, you sold what to who and how many? Oh, D-Dub. Love you, D-Dub. Go ahead. Oh gosh.
Such a good dude. Go check it out, guys. Don West GoFundMe. He needs our help, and boy, he deserves it. We just think a lot of him and his family, and excited to see him beat this thing and come out the real king of the mountain.
There you go.
So match number 1 that night is Bobby Roode. Yes, that Bobby Roode from WWE, and Petey Williams, or as he's called as a producer these days for WWE, Pete. He's going to go ahead and pick up a win over Jerry Lynn and Heavy Metal. That's right. Heavy Metal, man. What a loaded roster you guys have here. Showtime Eric Young, who's a part of Team Canada, is going to knock out Lynn with a hockey stick from behind. Metal. Dave would say Metal really stunk up the place with his bad selling, especially with his quick recoveries and lack of appropriate facial reactions. Otherwise, an entertaining tag match with a good forwarding of the Lynn D'Amore feud, 1 star. So he didn't love Heavy Metal, but Team Canada was a real bright spot in this era, was it not?
Conrad, and I just to touch on Heavy Metal, when I read that, I chuckled. Look, he's kind of working the lucha style, which isn't the American style of so much selling, so to speak, as the Team Canada. But Team Canada, I absolutely loved him. I think Scott, again, the most successful talent, I believe, going back generation to generation, is when they're playing an extension of their personality. Scott had a personal relationship with Pete, Bobby, Eric, A1 back in the day. I mean, Johnny Devine, but all of Team Canada. He also trained them and was quasi-agent or an agent for some of them at the time. And that group of Canadians, and it came across on TV, and all of their Canada, just they gelled, and man, just I can't say enough good about when you looked at the roster, they were the glue in so many places especially during the Asylum and as the transition down to Orlando. None of them worked like each other. There were no bookends. There were no same. They were all different, but man, they gelled. And a young Bobby Roode, good God Almighty, awesome. This is a good match too. Go out of your way, folks. This episode is awesome.
The next match is another one of my favorites, man. The alpha male, Monty Brown. I love this guy. He's going to pick up a win over Sonny Siaki, who I was convinced to know too. This is like their Rock. I was wrong on one of those accounts. They go 7 minutes and 5 seconds. Nothing much was done to establish who was the heel or face. A decent match overall, though with the usual good intensity from Brown and more urgency than usual from Siaki. 1.5 stars. 2 TNA, as you would call them, originals. This is a pretty good card so far. We don't spend a lot of time talking about Sonny Siaki, but such a major part of the beginning of TNA. What do you think stops Sasaki or Sonny from being a bigger star and catching on more?
Time. When I really think about Siaki and Monty, they're both greener and goose, just green. And I say that out of total respect. Neither one of them were seasoned. You look at, a lot of the talent that in NXT or AEW that they just come up through the ranks. They've got quite a bit of time before, these guys. And again, 1 day a week, they weren't going to their training schools or getting up in the ring. They're just not seasoned. But I believe opportunity and time were Sonny's biggest challenges. Just the time he entered into the business as a young guy. Again, this whole context is so hard for people nowadays to kind of connect, because independent wrestling in 2004 or 5 is nothing like it is today. I mean, at all, domestically or internationally.
Let's talk about what happens after the match. Glenn Gilberti and Johnny Swinger attack Siaki with a coconut and then put a straw skirt on him. Irish Pat Kenny made the save, and then Trinity kicked him from behind. Desire then ran out to even the odds and whipped Trinity with a leather strap. This is a different time, boys and girls, but Glenn Gilberti we know as Disco Inferno. You saw Johnny Swinger all over, including ECW. Irish Pat Kenny was also Simon Diamond. So a pretty loaded roster as far as names that wrestling fans were familiar with. This is a pretty loaded roster. I mean, I don't know another way to say it, but here we are just 3 segments in, and it's a who's who kind of who's not in the WWE, right?
It's entertaining. I just kind of remember we had broke out Swinger and, Simon Diamond, Johnny Swinger, and Irish Pat was a single guy. I loved it. I don't think Pat ever, I think he liked it somewhat, but I think he felt more comfortable in the role that he had done a while. But Trinity and Desire and lots of entertainment going on in that segment. Coconut and Disco. Oh, Disco's a character. He's something else on Twitter too these days. He is.
Let's not talk about that.
I know he's just too much. It's just like
Hudson's going to interview AJ Styles, who said he considered himself the favorite in the King of the Ring match because of his experience with ladders. Raven interrupts and asks Hudson why he's wasting his time interviewing a redneck, and then he attacks Styles. We don't spend a lot of time talking about Scott Hudson, but man, I think he was criminally underrated. We often say a lot of times in business, especially when you're talking about success, boy, timing is everything. But what a talent he was and is.
He's not underrated in my book. Because Conrad, he's one of those talents, super smart, his day job with the federal government. I'll just say that. And so he worked it where he could come up on Wednesdays, loves the business, so dialed into it. But in this time of TNA, we had so many young guys that they just weren't the best of talkers, or might get a little nervous and, hey, we're doing this live. Or if you got to get, if we're going to do a pre-tape and Russo's going to have them do it 3, 4, 5 times. Scott had the disposition to have patience and tolerance and work through it. He's a pro's pro. Scott is really, really good at it when he needs to do his work and his interviewee work. He can do it. If he needs to lay out, he can do it. He's kind of one of those unsung heroes of the early days of TNA in a lot of ways. But when you go back and kind of watch the overall work, you go, oh, okay, Scott was really good.
I don't think he gets his flowers enough. Next up, it's Frankie Kazarian wrestling the Amazing Red. Frankie's going to win to retain the X title in 9 minutes and 52 seconds. Meltzer would call it an above average match, but Red and Kazarian didn't bring out the best in each other. Red hit his Red Star press in 7:18, but Kazarian blocked a springboard attempt and hit the Wave of the Future for the win, 2.5 stars. Frankie Kazarian still doing his thing just this past weekend, was wrestling on pay-per-view for AEW. Amazing Red, one of those guys who, if you go back to 01, 02, I think a lot of people thought, man, this guy could be like the next Rey Mysterio. I mean, his matches oftentimes look like something out of the freaking Matrix. And now here he is on pay-per-view for you. But once again, like we've said with some other guys, he never really got the big spotlight. Why do you think Amazing Red didn't get that platform? Was it his size? And at the time, wrestling wasn't ready for that?
Small guy. WWE definitely weren't taking any small guys. We were Wednesday nights only. Throughout Red's career, just because of his style, he had I think a couple of times his knee went out. I'll never forget the night kind of when my father, working on headsets at Go Position, kind of saw Red's charisma. It's one thing to be able to do a move set and do some innovative moves, but to have the charisma where the people connected. And my dad threw the headsets, Conrad, because they were having to go long. Red was in the ring. He was going into a longer cell. We had to fill a little bit more time. And my dad threw the headsets, tells Don West, start cheering for Red. So what does Don do? Come on, Red. He's just doing it verbally. Go, go, go. No, Don. I mean, get the people behind Red. So you follow me, Conrad? Like, okay. So Conrad's like, okay, well, go, Red, go. And my dad was basically trying to tell Don, the people in the arena, let them see your infectionist, because because Don was a fans man. So my dad doesn't scream, but sounds kind of loud. Don, stand up on the announcer's desk and cheer Red. And Don's like, okay. And he popped up and started standing, and the whole arena stood. It was just one of those things that was really cool, because my dad saw Red's charisma and getting the people going, and then Don did it. And then Don kind of became Red's biggest cheerleader. But that's a fun little story, completely off topic, but it dials into, isn't it amazing that Kazarian and Red in 04 and now 2022, and they're both rocking and rolling. Good talent, very good talent.
Next up, we see Scott Hudson interview D-Ray 3000.
Oh, God.
Who stuck a comb in his afro. He stammered and said he's happy to be in TNA, but he doesn't know whom he'll be wrestling. Now, D-Ray 3000, another TNA original, if you will, although I think he did have a cup of coffee with the WWE on the skit a couple of years later. He was like the Ethiopian heavyweight champion or something stupid. But D-Ray 3000, what a character this guy was. Any good D-Ray memories you can share with us?
Well, okay, so D-Ray's from Detroit, brought him down, and look, he wasn't any fantastic blow you away X Division guy, but he was a good, solid in-ring worker. But this is one of those Russo things that when I saw it for the first time, I said, okay, that's entertaining. So D-Ray, his natural facial expression is that it's like, he's just the most easygoing, laid back kind of guy that he's not going to get excited for anything, but he's always looking for his next match. And Russo had that, him finish his promos, and he would ask Scott Hudson, say, all right, I'm ready to go. Which way's the ring? And the announcer would point to the left or whatever it may. He'd point to the left, and D-Ray would just, with really good comedic timing, nod his head in agreement, like, all right, I'm going to go get him, and then go the other way.
Yeah.
It was a little touch of comedy that got D-Ray noticed. It made him connect with the audience, because the people are like, oh, that's D-Ray. He's the one who's, whether he's out to lunch or does the opposite or whatever it is. But yeah, fun little, I had a D-Ray and Shark Boys, a tag team.
Hilarious.
Some good comedy, but another episode.
Next up, we've got Abyss pinning D-Ray in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Meltzer would say Abyss was fascinated with the comb in D-Ray's hair. Goldilocks came to the ring with a briefcase late in the match. Abyss hit his black hole slam to easily win. Goldie opened the briefcase and revealed a lot of cash. We don't know why exactly. 1 star. As Abyss keeps beating on D-Ray, Eric Watts comes down to make the save. And Tenay said Russo had told Watts to stay away from the asylum until further notice. He knocked Abyss out of the ring. Goldie grabbed the briefcase. Watts yanked it away from her and said it was his money. Security then entered the ring and escorted him to the back. And Vince Russo made sure he left the arena. Russo insisted Watts give him the money back to, quote unquote, trust him, and told him to go home and be with his wife. And Watts seemed shocked that Russo would bring up his wife, and Goldie ran into the picture and screamed that Watts should go home to his wife. What in the world is going on here?
I wish I could tell you, pal, because I'd have to research a few of the other weekly. Look, it obviously involves Goldie and Watts and money, and because Eric he would come up and run a string of Wednesdays, and then he would be off for a while. I don't recall, Conrad. I'll just be candid here. I don't know all the ins and outs of the exact story, where it was going, where it was coming from. Probably is where we need to do the jumping off point.
Talk to me about Goldilocks. How was she to work with?
She's talented. She didn't, she's by trade, she's a music artist. She's a singer. And my original attorney of TNA Entertainment, or J Sports Entertainment, was a connection here locally who was, I was connected originally from Mark Miller of Sawyer Brown through that law firm. And Deborah Wagner, who is the attorney, also represented Goldilocks, or they, that was the business, some type of connection there. And Goldie had a different way about her. And again, TNA, we were looking for females to be on the show. Didn't have a knockouts division. So how can you get a female on the show in a consistent manner without putting them in the ring? She was a backstage announcer.
What about your boy, Eric Watts, a name we haven't seen in wrestling for a long, long time? Of course, in the early 90s, he was a staple for WCW and received a lot of criticism. And then it feels like he just sort of went away, and now, bam, he's back here in TNA.
So what was the question? What, I mean, he was on the Wednesday stories. There was a time when he was heavily featured. Cowboy Bill Watts' son, for those who were not, a father of my peer, a territory promoter, also worked for Vince and WCW. But Eric was a former college quarterback at the University of Louisville. Like you said, early days, man, he was really put in a tough spot. Probably not quite ready for that spot as far as seasoned in-ring ability. But in TNA in the Asylum years, he was one of those guys that knew how to get over. Him and Russo had a really tight relationship. And what was it? I mean, he's a real asset to the Wednesday night shows.
It's just amazing to me that he's back. Is that your idea? What was your experience like working with him?
That was Russo. That was Russo, again, coming up from Atlanta. It was Russo, probably, I want to say Disco also had a relationship with Eric. I'm not positive. But anyway, it was definitely a Russo driven decision.
Let's jump into the next little piece of business here, because we see Scott Hudson interview James Storm and Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty says the tag belt sure would look good on the hood of his car as they drove away after the show. how great is Dusty? I mean, I know that we were blessed with him for a long time, but you go back and you watch some of his stuff, even with TNA here, where don't get me wrong, he's definitely on the downhill slope of any sort of in ring or on camera, but he's still wildly entertaining every time out, is he not?
So a lot of people through the years will, probably out of 10 TNA fans, 8 probably first discovered TNA on Spike. It's no Fox Sports, certainly not the Asylum. But through the years, if there's one name that sort of comes up in conversation of, hey, I didn't know so-and-so was a part of the early days of TNA, a name that comes up probably most is, I didn't know Dusty Rhodes. And man, he didn't do a one-off. I said, nope. Dusty Rhodes came up every Wednesday for quite the run. And even though, and at one time, he was running all things creatively. But, from day one, Dusty would request his check. He wanted to be paid when he walked through the door. Totally old school. Bob Ryder would have to have his check sitting there. You never know, kid. I'm like, Dusty, you've been coming up for 3 months. Do we still got to do this? Yep. But anyway, Dusty's charisma, and I loved having him apart, bounce ideas off, but he was so good for the talent. He'd roll in, get there early, and basically hold court as much as possible, talking to other guys. And I knew what a bonus, what an absolute bonus. Because I think those type deals, I know for me, being in dressing rooms, I've seen other guys, me and Kevin Nash in long road trips and early WWF back in the day, we would talk about just being around and being in the car or being in a dressing room, and to hear a couple of stories here and there. Yeah, they're entertaining, but you can also learn. And Dusty, man, but this match we're about to talk about, I remember several like this that you go, he ain't done one flip.
Nope.
He ain't done one X Division move.
Nope.
He literally has not left his feet. He's really only talked on the microphone for maybe 30 seconds at the top of the match. He didn't grab the mic and talk for 3 minutes. He did it with facials and timing and just theatrics and that kind of stuff. The people to this day, that's what they want, to be entertained.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dusty, that's my Hurricane. You just saw, just the funny Dustyisms we used to have a blast with.
Yep. We sure did. We still do. Me and Crowbar text them back and forth all the time. When you had a little person masturbating a trash can, Dusty got in the ring the next week and he said, the marquee says wrestling. It does not say a little person a beaten off in the trash can. But the way he put that in front, a beaten off, just
charisma. Real. And when you kind of think back and you hear like the Flair Rhodes dynamic in promos, you couldn't get more yin and yang.
No.
Wow. Jim Crockett Promotions, pal.
Coming back, baby. End of July. One last time. Hey, so here's the write-up in the Observer. The crowd was hottest for Kid Kash and Dallas in a title defense over Dusty Rhodes and James Storm. He would say, Dusty Rhodes got by far the biggest reaction of anyone. It was 5 minutes before they even locked up, and the crowd went nuts live with every Rhodes gyration, even though it was a lot different watching it on TV, as nothing happened forever. Also in the Observer, the difference was the crowd, which for whatever reason was the hottest TNA crowd in a long time. They've had crowds hot for certain matches, but this crowd was into everything on the show. They're going to go 11 minutes. Kid Kash and Dallas are going to beat Dusty and James Storm to retain the tag straps. Tenay and West said it had been 20 years since Dusty had been half of the tag team champions when he and Manny beat Nikita and Ivan Koloff. West compared Dusty to George Foreman. In the end, Dallas knocked out Storm with a lead pipe. An entertaining match personality-wise and some solid exchanges between Kash and Storm, but mostly stalling from Dusty. 1 star. I know that, we can be critical of the work, but my goodness, The fans went bananas, so it's a win.
Conrad, the wording of that, mostly stalling.
Yeah.
Do you think in Dusty's mind, he's thinking, hey, let me stall? No, he's going, let me entertain. Let me suck these people in. Let me get them emotionally invested in the match. And then we're going to give them some action. And that action is going to come from Kid Kash. And you sort of glanced over. So some of you non-TNA dialed in fans, Conrad just referenced Dallas. You might also know him as
Lance Archer.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Lance Hoyt back in those days.
That's right.
He was from Texas, another college quarterback. You know, he played QB in college.
No, I would not have guessed that. He is Too Tall Jones.
Super duper athlete. But anyway, yeah, we've talked about Kazarian and Red and all these different guys, Pat Kenny, and anyway. So hell of an entertaining match. James Storm got to sit under the learning tree of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and he did not stall. He entertained.
Hudson is going to interview Jeff Jarrett about his title shot later. Styles is going to attack Jarrett. They have a brief pull apart brawl. Hudson then interviews the NWA World Champ Ron Killings, along with Conan and BG James, who all complain about the odds being stacked against them. And now we get to our main event. It goes 20 minutes and 23 seconds. And of course, wouldn't you know it, that damn Double J Jeff Jarrett wins again. Meltzer would say he won the King of the Hill reverse ladder match over the incumbent Ron Killings and Chris Harris and Raven and AJ Styles to capture the NWA World Heavyweight title at 20 minutes and 23 seconds. Quote, very good gimmick concept match. In another innovative gimmick match introduced by TNA, Jeff Jarrett regained the World Heavyweight title for the third time in the King of the Mountain match. He won by climbing a ladder and hanging the NWA title belt on a hook above the ring before the incumbent champ, Ron Killings, and top contenders James Storm, AJ Styles, and Raven. He hit Killings with the guitar just before making the winning climb. The other key stipulation was that anytime someone was pinned, they had to spend 2 minutes in a penalty box, which was a small cage at ringside. At times, more than one wrestler was in the penalty box. Sometimes they'd have a mini cage brawl. Other times they call a truce to rest. Jarrett had previously held the title from November 20th, 2002 to June 11th, 2003. And then again from October 22nd, 2003 to April 21st, 2004 here. So from the Observer, they're going to say that you win the title a week before the first TV taping. And of course, he had predicted that. What did you think of the way this all came together and the execution of the match?
You know, Conrad, as last night and then earlier when you were asking me to explain, I forgot to think of this analogy that, again, internally, folks, 8 years later, 2011, 2012, you know, they're like, we don't even understand it. And I would say, hey, you ever been to a hockey game? Oh, yeah. Do you like it? Oh, love hockey. Absolutely. Do you understand all the rules? Well, hell no. Do you know what the blue line, you know what icing is? You know, what's a penalty, what's not a penalty, all that. And I'm just like, so just kind of let it breathe. Look, don't overcomplicate it. Some folks will continue to nitpick, and I get it. I respect that. But the people I knew after this match, Conrad, that, and I have often thought, is there a way that we can kind of tweak it to kind of let the air out of, oh, there's too many rules. I don't understand that. But these very first King of the Mountain match, and I'm going to Abyss, I hate to do this, but you talk about a guy that can lay out a match like this, like a Lethal Lockdown. This is why he's where he's at today. He can think things through from an announcer's point of view, from a talent's point of view, from a fan's point of view, and structurally put things together and piece it together and timing and all that. And I remember us getting together and knowing that when a pinfall happens, that guy's got to go into the penalty box. So let's take that into account and who's in there together, or if they're in there together. But I was very, very happy with the first one. Now look, not all of them could be perfect, but we had several in Orlando that the timing was right. Everything clicked. The people understood the drama when you got right down to the end. One talent would climb to the top. He would go off and there'd be a crash and burn. Another guy the babyface would get pinned and he'd be put into the penalty box. And then the heel or two heels would be left out and they'd be climbing. So you could create a lot of drama out of this match if it's executed properly. So I remember this one. I remember being really happy after we finished it.
One of the things I wanted to mention is this note from the Observer. They had to approach the FSN deal, whether this is a valid premise or not, that they are mainly introducing a product to a new audience. While a lot of people, and rightfully so, consider this the Jeff Jarrett vanity promotion, he was the best guy to go into the new television as champion. They also needed to pick one babyface, whether it be Harris or Styles, who is clear to be the guy getting the push, and build a fairly decent, lengthy program chasing it and getting it, because long term, Jarrett can't be the guy. It should also be noted that those in the booking process have noted that Jarrett was insistent upon being champ when the TV started, and an inordinate amount of time in the booking meetings is spent planning his angles. So who's leaking that stuff? Who's the stooge?
Through the years, I mean, you can almost pull the lens back and kind of know, but in order, so I'm just trying to think who was in the rooms. Look, it's no secret that Mike Tenay and Meltzer have had a 40-year friendship at this time, but Mike wasn't in the rooms. I don't know. Vince, Dutch, JB, I couldn't put my finger on any one thing, but God forbid you give the most time and attention to detail on the champions program. But again, good newsletter writing. I get it. I openly will have that discussion, but good question, Conrad.
Here's another one I wanted to ask about. Stephanie Bellers, who we know from WCW as Gorgeous George, Randy Savage's ex-girlfriend. She comes walking out at the end of the show, and Mike Tenay says something like, "I haven't seen her in years," but he doesn't identify her. And Don West is like, "Who is this?" And Meltzer says it was so weird because this supposed cliffhanger ending was never acknowledged on TV 2 days later. Bellers had been working as both a touring stripper on the weekends using the name George Frankenstein, as well as a bartender and hostess at the Crystal Springs Country Club in Hamburg, New Jersey, using the name George and telling people she prefers that name to Stephanie. Now she's married to a member of the Misfits rock group that worked in WCW. It's said that she is very tolerant of the fact that many people try and do Savage voice impressions when they order from her. That's probably a Hart connection since she was in the XWF. Hart has taken on a lot of Jerry Jarrett's duties. What's going on here? What can you tell us about Stephanie? How this came to be? Was it a Jimmy Hart influence? Any memories of working with her?
Zero. And here's what jumped off the page at me. Kind of, again, going back to knowing my philosophy. I think the easiest connection would be a Jimmy Hart, but the Jimmy was there and some kind of cliffhanger, but fundamentally, philosophically, I feel like going off the air with a new champion, why cloud that story? I mean, it just, her coming out after the King of the Mountain match and we're going off the air that way, that's a head scratcher, Conrad. So maybe not that they did it behind my back, but I don't remember who made that decision. It feels like Jimmy Hart, but maybe Jimmy Hart to Vince Russo, and Vince is like, yeah, we'll put her out at the very end of the show. And Mike and Don, you got to react to it. And then your out shot is the new champion.
It's interesting. Meltzer would say the plan here is to make Styles the focal point of the X division. And it was noted here many months ago. It was always planned for when TV started. Styles himself is happy with it because he feels he can do the kind of matches he wants better with those opponents. It shows a totally different mentality than WWE or even WCW during the cruiserweight's peak. In those companies, the mentality was the cruiserweight division limited you to lower mid-card status and smaller guys of that size, such as Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, and Chris Benoit, and even later Rey Mysterio. Certainly in WWE today, the cruiserweights are a joke. If Bruce Pritchard or others doesn't get the division killed by creative, the booking has already set it up for the same result. Fans have been conditioned to not think it's of any importance. This does give TNA a style and concept of its own, which is good. In Japan, there have been several companies like Michinoku Pro, Osaka Pro, etc., who've built around smaller guys. They are not gigantic successes, but they've survived by giving fans a style that the big companies don't concentrate on. But they are not at the level where the wrestlers are making big money working for them. So I like the idea that, hey, we're going to make Styles the focal point and he's going to be the face of the X division. Did you view the cruiserweights as, I don't know, mid card in WCW?
Yes, in WCW I did, but you know, again, context is king. You got the NWO, you got the Four Horsemen. You know, I was a big part of the Four Horsemen during that era, Conrad. But no, but you know, it was a different time. The 3 hours of Nitro, or the 2 hours of Nitro, started off with action. Many luchadors, you know, Conan. It was, you know, very innovative, and the new luchador, but it was positioned as, in a lot of ways, mid card at best. I mean, at very best. Fast forward 8-10 years, you know, and I could probably give you 3 or 4 lines that I've heard 100 times back in that day. But my father always used to have the mentality. Yes, Dundee was, you know, he didn't do high flying stuff, but a little bit. But you know, my dad drew a lot of money with Dutch and Dundee and, you know, Ricky Morton and smaller guys. But yeah, I always heard that as somewhat of wrestling philosophy and chatter. But my father would get into this discussion, and he's a data guy like me, and you know, we couldn't get exacts, but you know, Sugar Ray Leonard, his box office at the time, you know, so it's Marvin Hagler, Ray Leonard, who's the third? Oh, Duran. Those guys set records, and so that was like, yes, people will pay to see smaller guys that aren't as heavy if you position and promote them right. That's why in every marketing meeting, I always was as openly, I really press the fact that, hey guys, if we tell them their main event, they'll believe it. But if we tell them they're less than, that's what they're going to think. So I always tried to position the X division, even from day one, on equal footing.
So you get your win, third time with the NWA title. At this point, I'm not saying this to be negative. Is it special anymore? I mean, obviously winning it the first time is really cool and really exciting. But now with the pressure of not just being an in-ring performer like you were in WCW when you won the world title, but now it's sort of your shooting match, and you got all this stress and pressure of the business, and you got some stuff going on at home, and dad just had a heart attack. It feels like it's just another day at the office. This isn't something you can really get excited about. Is that fair to say?
In so many ways, I can remember so many things about Tampa and winning the Intercontinental title against Razor Ramon. I mean, down to me and Road Dogg driving to, you know, Sarasota, Brayton the next day, you know, just details about that whole trip. The WCW Chicago, DDP, the first time I won that title, so many things about that. The TNA, I wore so many hats. There was never a big moment where I could sink it in. I mean, the first time I won the AAA title, that was a really big deal. And then fast forward till 2018 when they laid that story out, Rey Mysterio in the match, and I become that was a special moment. The TNA championship runs, so much was going on personally and professionally. There was never a moment where you went, right on. You're right. It just, I don't say it wasn't special. It just was a different emotional situation.
Talk to me about, we got a few questions here I want to get to, but this one it stands out. Out of all the gimmick matches introduced in TNA, where does King of the Mountain in terms of your favorite?
It's up there. Ultimate X is probably number 1. King of the Mountain's probably number 2. I you know, there's been, like I said, some really good dramatic King of the Mountain matches. Also, obviously, Ultimate X, but the King of the Mountain match with the right storyline and 5 guys that deserve to be in the match and tell the story, you can really create a story within a story in a King of the Mountain match.
You know, I want to talk about how you introduce a new gimmick match. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody that today's episode is brought to you by Elysium Health. This is something that I just recently learned about myself, but I know that, Jeff, you've been keeping up with it for a long time. NAD plus supplementation and how it's important as we get older. I just turned 40, so it's just now on my my purview, if you will. Here's what I'm looking to talk about today. NAD plus supplementation and how Elysium Health's product basis is clinically proven to raise those levels by 40% safely and sustainably. Elysium's products target aging at its source. They're unlike any other health company I've ever come across, and now they're at the forefront of NAD supplementation. Check this out. They have dozens of the world's best scientists. In fact, 8 of them are Nobel Prize winners. In case you didn't know this, and I've just learned it myself, NAD Plus is found in every single cell of your body. It's responsible for creating energy, regulating hundreds of cell functions. But here's the thing, as you get older, your NAD Plus levels decline as you age. So things like lack of sleep, intense exercise, unbalanced diet, sun overexposure, all of that can also deplete your NAD Plus levels. These decreased NAD Plus levels are linked to faster biological aging. They can even slow down your vital body functions. So Basis replenishes those youthful levels of NAD Plus to promote healthy aging, to support cellular energy and metabolism. It's also going to reduce your general tiredness to keep you feeling good for longer. And many Basis customers also report experiencing higher energy, less fatigue, and more satisfying workouts. This is something that we feel really strongly about here on the show. As we get a little older, guys, we want to keep looking like Jeff, right? Come on now. Try it out. Go to trybasis.com/myworld and enter the code myworld at checkout to save 10% off Basis prepaid plans, as well as other Elysium Health supplements. That's trybasis.com/myworld and use the code myworld at checkout to save 10%. And we thank you, Elysium Health, for sponsoring today's episode. That's trybasis.com/myworld. Trybasis.com/myworld. So yeah, that's making those guns bigger. Is that what you're telling me? That's the reason.
Sorry, Conrad. I just stomped on your read. Not my bad. I take it every morning on an empty stomach, 5:30 every morning.
Go out of your way. Check it out. It's working for the King of the Mountain. It'll work for you too. Middle Kingdom Wrestling, our friends over in China, have a great question. Hi, Mr. Jarrett. Do you have some production advice or suggestions for when introducing a new match type to an audience for TV and the live audience, like the King of the Mountain or the Ultimate X, etc., especially when presenting brand new match types and stipulations that have never been done before with unfamiliar rules? Is it about showing pre-match graphics with the rules, the ring announcer going through them before the match? What's the best practice?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. I could get really long-winded, but graphically, I think the old rule of 3 comes in. Explain the match in 3 bullet points. I think that's important. If you have video, nothing tells a story like a video. Yeah, I mean, the 3 bullet points are text, but if you have a video to conceptually show it, and then those 3 bullet points with the ring announcer should say it, in my opinion, before anybody comes to the ring, because have all eyes on that announcer and they're audibly hearing it and visually seeing the text. And, you know, again, if you can roll a little 30 to 45 second video before anybody comes out there, that helps as well.
Well, I love it. I'm glad we got to talk about King of the Mountain. And next week, we're going to talk about another original Mr. AJ Styles. The phenomenal one has had such a career. We'll talk about the start of it, believe it or not, in WCW to TNA, some of his ups and downs. I think he's probably the biggest star to come out of TNA. So we'll talk about the rise of AJ, the evolution of AJ in the business as a man, as a wrestler, as a businessman, what AJ meant to TNA, and whether or not Jeff was sad to see AJ leave TNA. And of course, we're going to talk about when you stood next to AJ Styles and ruined the Bullet Club. All that and more right here next week on My World. But in between now and then, is it do I have this right? You're reporting to work. You're going to be working with Vince McMahon again?
Conrad, I said we'll just keep things private. I'm reporting to duty. I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Are you taking a pistol? Just want to know.
Well, Bruce said that I'll probably get frisked at the door. And so I'm hoping I can give Bruce my snub nose and that he just kind of.
Bruce can't have guns on the office anymore either. You were both banned from owning guns.
Oh, okay. We shouldn't joke about guns.
Oh, no. You know what I'm saying, though. There was a famous story about you holding up Vince. My apologies.
I know. We have a blast with it. You know what? I haven't seen Bruce.
He's dropped a bunch of LBs, you know.
No, I don't know that.
I'm probably not supposed to be sharing this, but he stopped eating red meat. Like last time he ate red meat was last year sometime.
Okay.
And he's working with a personal trainer like every day. And yeah,
I love it. That's right up my alley.
Yeah. So y'all are going to be workout buddies, maybe.
Oh, I can't. Let's dig in. Let's do it. I'm excited. Hey, the episode next week on AJ's last nights in TNA. I've never told that story, Conrad. I've also got a Korea story with me and AJ. AJ, I don't know. He has time. He's got kids and a whole career, but there's a funny story about Korea. All you have to do if you see AJ Styles, say, "Hey, did you ever work with Jeff in Korea?" And just watch the look on his face. So young AJ Styles in the asylum and cage matches, and I can't wait for next week. It's going to be a really fun episode. The Hall of Fame. Me and Bobby and AJ got to take a picture and Eric Young. Yeah, it'll be a fun episode. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun week. Opening day on Saturday. Starcast. Hey, I'm the biggest wrestling fan. Maybe you know, or one of them. When are you going to announce all the stage shows? Look, as your partner and also as a fan, I'm going to keep. When are they going to roll out?
Well, we've announced a bunch. We've announced that Bret Hart's going to be there talking about his match with Davey Boy Smith for the 30th anniversary of SummerSlam.
Yeah.
We've also announced that Johnny Gargano is going to be on stage talking about.
Announced that? See, I'm getting along. Yep. Folks, explain that one. My world listeners. I didn't know that was announced yet. Go ahead.
It's announced. Yeah, Johnny Gargano is maybe one of, if not the biggest free agent in wrestling right now.
Yep.
And he walked away from NXT, and I think a lot of people assumed, well, he's going to show up on a Wednesday, and he did not. And in the meantime, he's gone out and had a beautiful baby, and now there's a lot of chatter. What's next for Gargano? Is he going to show up on the WWE main roster? Is he trying to go back to NXT? Might he pop up in Ring of Honor or AEW or perhaps Impact or the NWA? But Lord knows he's got plenty of options, and we're going to pin him down and have a conversation and talk about the good old days of his career and all the highlights from that NXT run that people are still talking about. But then we're going to pick his brain about what's next. We've also got the Horseman reunion. All those guys, and when I say all those guys, I mean Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, J.J. Dillon, Tully Blanchard, Lex Luger, Barry Windham. They're all going to be there.
Jeff Jarrett.
No, we only invited the Horsemen.
Okay.
And we're going to have Tony Schiavone host it. And that is going to be a panel discussion that, man, you just don't want to miss. We got a bunch more coming, but there's a little taste.
They're not all out, right? Because I know
and of course the roast of Ric Flair. I mean, that's kind of the main event on Friday night.
It is. But
I do have some others, but I've got some in my back pocket that I'm not technically supposed to announce yet.
Okay.
Let me just say some of the biggest stars in the history of WWE, some of the biggest stars in wrestling today are going to be there on stage telling their stories.
In Nashville, folks.
In Nashville. Go pick up. By the way, I think we've ran through this before, but if you've never been to a Starcast, it's unlike any of the other conventions. Yes, we have meet and greets, but we also have these panel discussions. And so there'll be a stage and a whole bunch of seats, and you're able to just go to every single one of them. Thinking about it like a music festival, except it's old wrestling stories, baby. And you get to go to Collector's Corner. That's where we do the meet and greets. But then if with a bracelet, you don't just get to go to the meet and greets. Now you get to go to all these shows, including the roast of Ric Flair. So pick up a bracelet. A gold one's only $179. You're going to get at least a dozen different stage shows. It's going to be like $10 a show that you would attend. And then, of course, you can wander around and pick up all your meet and greets for 2 days. If you bought just the weekend pass and you did the meet and greet route, that's $59. So you're essentially saying $120 more to get that gold bracelet. And ta-da, I get to early pre-sale and buy all these, opportunities for meet and greets before they sell out. Cause a guy like Bret Hart will sell out. Yep. But in addition to that, you get a guaranteed seat for all of these discussions on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 days worth of content with one bracelet purchase, Jeff.
I'm telling you, it's blowing me away. Can I mention a vendor that's coming?
Yeah.
I didn't know if that's, I don't want to get out of line because as you know, I texted you the other day and said, WrestleQuest.com. No, WrestleQuest, folks, the video game that the promoter extraordinaire, the podfather himself, Conrad, is in. But no, WrestleQuest, Conrad, they were telling me about the booth they're designing. This is going to be kind of next level. Now I'm putting the pressure on them, but this isn't going to be your ordinary average, just kind of booth space. We're pipe and drape. So get ready, Connie. WrestleQuest is coming to Starcast.
I'm ready. I'm pumped. Oh, I should also mention the Major Figure Wrestling Pod. They're going to have a stage show. Kevin Nash has a new podcast debuting with Sean Oliver called Click This. They're going to have a stage show this Friday. Mick Foley's podcast, Foley is Pod debuts. He's going to have a stage show. I mean, the hits just keep on coming. All the Horsemen, Bret Hart, the Major Figure Bros, Kevin Nash, Johnny Gargano, Mick Foley, the Roaster Ric Flair. It's all happening July 29th, 30th, and 31st. Starcast.com is where you can pick up a bracelet to attend all of these events. And of course, if you can't make it, no problem. Go to Starcast.com and you can pre-order on Fight. You can watch it live. You can watch it on demand. And one of the things we're adding as a perk, Jeff, is when you buy Starcast 5 on pay-per-view, you get access to 1, 2, 3, and 4. So wow. you get 5 conventions worth of content for the price of 1 when you order over at Starcast.com on Fight. So how about that, Jeff?
Fight technology, second to none. I've early adopter back to the flip stage. Their technology is unbelievable.
I hope you guys check it out, and I hope you'll check us out right here next week when we're talking all things AJ Styles on My World.
Peace, my friend.